Some Scottish surnames are not just old, they are ancient. Not old in the way that a Victorian house is old, ancient in the way that a standing stone is ancient, placed there by people whose names we do not know, for reasons we can only guess at, in a landscape that has changed beyond recognition around them, while they themselves have not moved. If your Scottish surname is on this list, your family name was already being written into Scottish documents before the Black Death reached these islands, before Bannockburn, before William Wallace was born. Today, we prove it. 20 Scottish surnames and the evidence for how ancient they really are. What does it mean for a Scottish surname to be truly ancient? In our previous Scottish videos, we explored the oldest documented surnames, names first recorded during the reign of David I from 1124 onward. That is already remarkable, but some of the names on today's list go further. Some derive from Pictish personal names, the indigenous people of Scotland before the Gaels arrived from Ireland. Some preserve Old Norse words from the Viking Age. Some carry Brittonic Celtic, the ancestor of Welsh, embedded inside them. And some are so tied to specific Scottish landscapes that they have been spoken in the same valley, in the same form for over 1,000 years. I will document when each name first appears in written records, but I will also tell you what the name preserves from before those records began, because for many of these surnames, the written record is only where the story ends, not where it started. 20 names, all ancient, all still here. Number 20, Campbell, crooked mouth, and the most powerful and most complex clan in Scotland. Campbell, from the Gaelic Campbell, meaning crooked mouth, was almost certainly a nickname for a distinctive physical feature of an early ancestor that became a hereditary surname. The earliest Campbell in contemporary Scottish sources is Gilliesbeg of Menstrie, recorded as Gaelascapa Campbell, appearing in a charter of King Alexander III in 1263. Between 1200 and 1500, the Campbells emerged as one of the most powerful families in Scotland, dominant in Argyll. Their chiefs, the earls and later dukes of Argyll, held Inverary Castle, still the home of the current duke today. At their peak, the Campbells controlled more territory in Scotland than almost any family outside the crown. The Campbell name's complicated legacy stems from one event, the massacre of Glencoe on 13 February 1692. Government soldiers, including men of the Campbell Regiment, killed 38 members of the MacDonald clan of Glencoe after accepting their hospitality for 12 days. The killing of guests who had provided shelter was called murder under trust, a specific legal category in Scottish law. The Campbells did not order it, King William III's government did, but Campbell soldiers carried it out. Over 800 years of documented history, Scotland's most powerful clan, and its most debated legacy. If your name is Campbell, MacArthur, or Burns, your family's roots go back to Argyll, to the original Gaelic kingdom of Dalriada, and to one of the longest documented clan histories in Scotland. Number 19, Sinclair. From Normandy to the most enigmatic chapel in Scotland, Sinclair derives from Saint-Clair-sur-Epte in Normandy, a place whose name connects to one of the most significant events in European history. The Treaty of Saint-Clair-sur-Epte in 912 AD was the agreement between the Frankish king and the Viking leader Rollo that created Normandy itself. The Sinclair family descended from Rollo's Norman successors. The first Sinclair documented in Scotland is Henry of St. Clair, who received lands in Haddingtonshire in 1160. According to tradition, the earlier William the Seemly. Sinclair accompanied St. Margaret of Scotland around 1068 and was granted the barony of Roslin by King Malcolm III, making the Sinclair connection to Scotland potentially older than any written record confirms. The Sinclairs became Earls of Caithness, building Castle Sinclair Gurnago on the cliffs outside Wick, one of Scotland's most dramatically positioned castles. But their most famous legacy is Roslin Chapel, built between 1446 and 1484 by William Sinclair, 1st Earl of Caithness. One of the most elaborately carved stone buildings in Scotland, its symbols have generated centuries of speculation about Knights Templar and Freemasonry. The Sinclairs were hereditary Grand Masters of Masonry in Scotland for centuries, from a Norman treaty in 912. To a chapel in Scotland that no one has fully explained. If your name is Sinclair, your family's name was born from the document that created Normandy. Number 18, Hay. The enclosure and the archer who changed Scottish history at the Battle of Luncardy. Hay derives from the Old French word hay, meaning a hedge or enclosure brought to Scotland by Norman settlers in the 12th century. The Hay family appears in Scottish records from around 1160, when William de la Hay witnessed a charter for Holyrood Abbey. But the Hay family's most famous story is a legend so embedded in Scottish culture that it was recorded as historical fact for centuries. At the Battle of Luncardy, said to have taken place in 990 AD, when a Danish force was invading Scotland, the Scottish army was reportedly routed and fleeing. According to the tradition, a peasant farmer named Hay and his two sons blocked a narrow pass with their plow, rallying the Scots and turning the battle. As a reward, the king is said to have given Hay and his descendants as much land as a falcon could fly over before it settled, which turned out to be a substantial portion of the Mearns. Whether this legend is historical or not is debated. What is historical? The Hay family became Earls of Errol and were appointed Hereditary Lord High Constables of Scotland, a title that the Earl of Errol still holds today, making it one of the oldest hereditary offices in the British Isles. If your name is Hay, your family has been Scotland's hereditary constable for 8 centuries. Number 17, Menzies, pronounced Mingus, and one of Scotland's most misread names. Menzies, pronounced Mingus, not Menzies, is one of those Scottish surnames that immediately reveals whether you know Scotland or not. The name derives from the Norman French Mesnieres, a place in Normandy, and arrived in Scotland in the 12th century. The first Menzies in Scottish records is Robert de Mainers, who appears as a charter witness around 1224. The clan established themselves in Perthshire, specifically in the area around Aberfeldy and the Tay Valley, and Castle Menzies near Weem is still standing today. The Menzies tree is a specific claim to fame. The Menzies clan is credited with introducing the larch tree to Scotland in the 18th century, brought from the Alps by Archibald Menzies. The larch transformed the Scottish Highland landscape, today one of the most characteristic trees of the Scottish glens. Before the Menzies introduction, it did not grow in Scotland. Also, Archibald Menzies, the botanist, a different Archibald, sailed with George Vancouver and discovered and named dozens of Pacific plant species, including the monkey puzzle tree. If your name is Menzies, your family introduced the larch to Scotland, and you pronounce it Mingees. Number 15, Dunbar. The fort on the point, and the earls who held Scotland's eastern edge. Dunbar derives from the Gaelic dun and bar, the fort on the summit, or the fort on the promontory. It is one of Scotland's most purely descriptive place names, and the town of Dunbar on the East Lothian coast has occupied that strategic coastal position since prehistoric times. The Earls of Dunbar, the Cospatrick family, are among Scotland's oldest documented noble families. Cospatrick, the first Earl of Dunbar, appears in records from around 1072. The family held enormous territories along Scotland's eastern coastal fringe and had blood connections to both the English and Scottish royal houses. The surname Dunbar also carries a literary legacy. Gavin Douglas, Bishop of Dunkeld, who lived from 1474 to 1522, and William Dunbar, who lived from approximately 1460 to approximately 1520, were great Scottish Macars, poets of the late medieval period, and are among the most significant literary figures of early Scottish literature. William Dunbar's poems about Edinburgh and the Scottish court are primary historical documents as much as literary works. If your name is Dunbar, your family's fort has stood on the same point for over 1,000 years. Number 15, Keith, from the Brittonic and the hereditary Marshals of Scotland. Keith is one of Scotland's oldest and most intriguing surnames because its origins may predate the Gaelic language entirely. The place name Keith in East Lothian, from which the family takes its name, is believed to derive from Brittonic Celtic, the ancient language spoken in Britain before Gaelic arrived from Ireland. The Brittonic element coed, or a related form, meaning forest or wood, is proposed by some scholars as the root. The Keith family appears in Scottish records from around 1150. When Hervey Keith witnessed a charter, they rose to become hereditary marshals of Scotland, the officers responsible for the safety of the king and the Scottish Parliament, the guardians of the honours of Scotland. In 1651, when Oliver Cromwell's forces threatened to seize the honours of Scotland, the Keiths, specifically William Keith, 7th Earl Marischal, and the minister of Kyneff Church famously hid them. The regalia was smuggled out of Dunbar Castle under siege and buried beneath the floor of Kyneff Church, where they remained hidden for 8 years until the Restoration. The hereditary marshal title was forfeited after 1715 when the 10th Earl supported the Jacobite Rising, but the story of Dunbar and Kyneff is one of the most dramatic episodes in Scottish history. If your name is Keith, your ancestors were responsible for hiding Scotland's crown jewels. Number 14, Colquhoun, pronounced Colquhoun, and the clan that was nearly destroyed by the MacGregors. Colquhoun, pronounced Colquhoun, is another of those Scottish surnames that announces itself immediately as genuinely Scottish. It derives from the barony of Colquhoun in Dunbartonshire, Gaelic Cael Cumhan, the narrow strait or the narrow woodland. The Colquhoun family appears in Scottish records from around 1246, when Humphrey de Kilpatrick received the lands of Colquhoun from the Earl of Lennox. The most dramatic Colquhoun story connects directly to a name from our previous videos. It was the Colquhoun clan that was the victim of the MacGregor massacre at the Battle of Glenfruin in February 1603, when approximately 200 Colquhouns were killed, the event that led directly to the banning of the MacGregor name. The Colquhouns presented King James VI with evidence of the massacre by bringing the widows of the dead men to court dressed in mourning and each carrying her husband's bloodied shirt. The visual impact of 60 or 80 women in black, each carrying a blood-stained garment, reportedly moved the king to issue the proclamation banning the MacGregor name, a dramatic act of bearing witness. That changed the history of a Scottish name. If your name is Colquhoun, your ancestors' testimony outlawed the MacGregors. Number 13, Oliphant, the elephant, and one of Scotland's most unexpected surnames. Oliphant is one of Scotland's most surprising surnames because it means exactly what it looks like, elephant. The name derives from the Old French Oliphant, the medieval French word for elephant, and was brought to Scotland by Norman settlers. The Oliphant family appears in Scottish records from around 1141, when David de Oliphant witnessed a charter of King David I. The family became powerful landowners in Perthshire and Angus. Their heraldic crest features an elephant, which makes the Oliphants unique among Scottish noble families in having an animal that has never been seen in Scotland as their primary heraldic symbol. The most significant Oliphant historical moment involves William Oliphant, the knight who held Stirling Castle against Edward I of England in 1304, the last Scottish stronghold to resist the English occupation during the Wars of Independence. He held out for approximately 3 months against a besieging force that included Edward himself, who deployed his newest siege weapons, including the engine named Warwolf, described as the largest trebuchet ever built, against the walls. Edward refused to accept surrender until Warwolf had been tested. Oliphant eventually surrendered on July 20th, 1304, was imprisoned in the Tower of London, and was released in 1308. An elephant in Scotland defending a castle against the hammer of the Scots. If your name is Oliphant, your ancestors held out against Edward I and his war machines. Number 12, Innis, the island or riverside meadow, and one of Scotland's quietest ancient families. Innis derives from the Gaelic Innis, island or riverside meadow. The name describes a landscape feature, a piece of land partly surrounded by water or sitting in a bend of a river. The Innis family takes its name from the lands of Innis in Moray and appears in Scottish records from around 1160, when Beorwald received the lands of Innis from King Malcolm IV. The family became established in northeastern Scotland, Moray and Banffshire, and remained there for centuries. What makes the Innis surname historically significant is its linguistic antiquity. The Gaelic word Innis is one of the oldest topographic terms in the Scottish landscape, found in place names across the Gaelic-speaking world from the Scottish Highlands to Ireland. When the Innis family took their name from their lands, they were preserving a word that described Scottish landscapes before written records began. Innis House near Elgin, built in the 17th century and still standing, is one of the finest examples of Scottish Renaissance architecture in the northeast. If your name is Innis, your family name preserves one of the oldest words in the Scottish landscape. Number 11, Lennox, the elm grove and the earldom at the heart of Scottish royal drama. Lennox derives from the Gaelic Leamhonic, place of elms, from Leamhon elm tree. The region of Lennox, covering much of what is now Dunbartonshire and parts of Stirlingshire, was named for the elm groves that once covered its hills. The Earls of Lennox appear in Scottish records from the 12th century, making this one of the oldest Scottish earldoms. The title passed through multiple families over the centuries, and it was through the Lennox earldom that one of the most dramatic Scottish royal connections was made. Matthew Stewart, Earl of Lennox, was the father of Henry Stewart, Lord Darnley, who married Mary, Queen of Scots, in 1565 and became the father of James VI of Scotland, the future James I of England. The Lennox earldom thus connects directly to the Stuart royal line that united the British crowns. Darnley was murdered in mysterious circumstances at Kirklefield in Edinburgh in February 1567, one of the most famous unsolved murders in Scottish history. The explosion at Kirkfield and the subsequent marriage of Mary to the Earl of Bothwell, who was widely suspected of organizing the murder, destroyed Mary's reputation and eventually her throne. If your name is Lennox, your family's elm grove gave its name to the earldom that produced Scotland's most controversial royal murder. Number 10. Erskine, the Greenhite and the keepers of Scotland's greatest reformer. Erskine derives from a place name in Renfrewshire, likely from Brittonic or Gaelic elements meaning the green height or the ascending ground. The Erskine family appears in Scottish records from around 1225. The Erskines became Earls of Mar and Earls of Kelly, one of the most ancient earldoms in Scotland, but their most significant historical role was as hereditary keepers of Stirling Castle and custodians of the Scottish royal children. John Erskine, Earl of Mar, was the guardian of the infant James VI, appointed to raise and protect Scotland's future king. Erskine raised James at Stirling Castle, educating him under the remarkable scholar George Buchanan in what became one of the most intensive royal educations in British history. The young king who would unite the crowns of Scotland and England was raised and shaped by an Erskine. If your name is Erskine, your ancestors raised the king who united Britain. Number 9. McDougall, son of the Dark Stranger, the oldest Gaelic surname in continuous use. McDougall, Gaelic MacDougall, meaning son of Dubgall, with Dubgall meaning dark stranger, is directly descended from Dougal, son of Somerled, the great 12th century warrior king who drove the Norse from the Western Isles. This makes the McDougalls one of the oldest continuously documented Gaelic families in Scotland. Their lineage to Somerled is not a traditional claim. It is documented in medieval genealogies and confirmed by modern Y-DNA research. And Somerled himself was of mixed Norse-Gaelic descent, meaning the McDougall name carries the dark stranger, the Norse, inside its very meaning. At the Pass of Brander in 1308, Robert the Bruce defeated the McDougalls in a battle that broke their power in the west. The reason? The McDougalls had supported the Comyn family, and when Bruce killed the Red Comyn in 1306, they became his implacable enemies. According to tradition, Bruce was nearly captured at Dalrig in 1306 by McDougall warriors, and the brooch of Lorne, associated with that ambush, is today owned by the McDougall of Denali Preservation Trust. Historians have dated the existing brooch to between 1550 and 1575. It may be a later replacement, but the tradition is unbroken, and the object is still in McDougall keeping. If your name is McDougall, your family line reaches directly to the warrior king who shaped the medieval Hebrides. Number 8. Macleod, son of the Ugly One, 800 years in one castle, and a piece of silk no one can explain. MacLeod, Gaelic, Macleod, meaning son of Leod, with Leod being the Gaelic form of the Old Norse name Leotar, meaning ugly. The MacLeods descend directly from Leod, son of Olaf the Black, Norse king of Man and the Isles, who died in 1237. This makes the MacLeods direct descendants of the Norse rulers of the Hebrides. Their surname is a permanent record of the Viking Age in Scotland, preserved in Gaelic phonetics. Dunvegan Castle on the Isle of Skye has been the home of the MacLeod chiefs for over 800 years, the longest continuously inhabited castle in Scotland. Every chief since the 13th century has lived there. Within Dunvegan is kept the fairy flag, Ambrotic Sith in Gaelic, a piece of ancient silk scientifically dated to between the 4th and 7th centuries AD. Tradition holds it was given by fairies and brings victory when unfurled, but only 3 times. During the Second World War, MacLeod servicemen carried photographs of it into battle. The silk has been scientifically analyzed and found to be of Middle Eastern or Near Eastern origin. How a piece of ancient silk from that part of the world ended up in a castle on Skye is a mystery that has never been explained. Son of the Ugly One, 800 years in one castle with a piece of ancient silk that no one can account for. If your name is MacLeod, your family has kept something in that castle for 8 centuries and no one knows where it came from. Number 7. Comyn or Comyn, the most powerful family in Scotland, destroyed in a church. Comyn, also spelled Coming, is the anglicized form of a Norman name, de Comines, from a town in what is now northern France. The Comyns came to Scotland in the 12th century and rose faster and further than almost any other family in medieval Scottish history. At their peak in the late 13th century, the Comyn family held more Scottish land than any family except the king. They were Earls of Buchan and Lords of Badenoch, with castles across the north and northeast. When Alexander III of Scotland died in 1286 without an heir, the Comyns were among the most powerful claimants to influence over the Scottish succession. Their destruction came in a single moment. On the 10th of February 1306, Robert the Bruce met John Comyn, the Red Comyn, at the Greyfriars Church in Dumfries to discuss the Scottish political situation. The meeting turned violent. Bruce stabbed Comyn at the altar. When he emerged from the church and told his companions what had happened, Roger de Kirkpatrick is said to have responded, "I'll make siccar, I'll make sure," and went back in to finish the killing. The murder of Comyn at a sacred altar was an act of sacrilege as much as violence. It forced Bruce's hand. He had now committed an act for which there was no forgiveness from the English crown. He had to become king or die. 6 weeks later, he was crowned at Scone. The Comyn family never recovered. Their lands were forfeited, their power was broken, the most powerful family in Scotland destroyed in a church, and from that destruction a king was born. If your name is Comyn or Coming, your ancestors were the most powerful family in Scotland, and their destruction made Robert the Bruce. Number 6. Dundas. The southern fort and the man who ran an empire. Dundas derives from the Gaelic Dun and Old English or Gaelic Deas. The southern fort, the place of Dundas in West Lothian, gives the family its name. The Dundas family appears in Scottish records from around 1200, but it was in the 18th century that the Dundas name reached its greatest prominence. Henry Dundas, 1st Viscount Melville, who lived from 1742 to 1811, was arguably the most powerful man in Scotland of his era, and one of the most powerful in the British Empire. As Home Secretary, Secretary of State for War, and First Lord of the Admiralty, he controlled Scottish political patronage so completely that he was known as Harry IX, the uncrowned King of Scotland. He managed elections, appointed judges, controlled church appointments, and directed Scotland's relationship with the British state during the most transformative decades of the Industrial Revolution. He was also a key figure in delaying the abolition of the slave trade. His amendment to Wilberforce's Abolition Bill in 1792 introduced the word gradually, delaying full abolition by 15 years. A statue of Dundas stands on Melville Column in St. Andrew Square, Edinburgh, and it became a focus of debate during the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 when a plaque acknowledging his role in delaying abolition was added to the monument. If your name is Dundas, your ancestors' southern fort produced the man who ran Scotland and delayed the end of slavery. Number 5. Robertson, Scotland's oldest documented clan, and the stone from Bannockburn. Robertson, formerly Clan Donachide, from the Gaelic meaning children of Duncan, is cited by Ancestry.com as often the oldest Scottish clan, with roots the clan traces to the royal house of Atholl and ultimately to Crinan of Dunkeld, father of King Duncan I, the same King Duncan who appears in Shakespeare's Macbeth. The documented history begins at Bannockburn in 1314, where Donchad Remhar, Stout Duncan, led the clan into battle. And here's what makes the surname's claim to antiquity uniquely tangible. The Cloch na Brat Tataich, the clan's crystal charmstone, said to have been lifted from the ground on the march to Bannockburn in 1314, is still kept by the Robertson chiefs today. You can see it at the Clan Donachide Museum near Braemar. It is one of the oldest physical relics of Scottish clan history. The surname Robertson itself came later. Robert Riabach, the 4th chief, personally hunted down and captured the murderers of King James I of Scotland in 1437, an act of loyalty rewarded with the barony of Struan in 1451. The clan became known as the Sons of Robert, a charmstone picked up on the way to Bannockburn, still in the family, still visible, over 700 years later. If your name is Robertson or Duncan, your family's documented history begins at the battle that secured Scottish independence, and the stone they carried there is still in the family. Number 4. Seton, Satan. The settlement by the sea and the family at every turning point. Seton derives from the barony of Seton in East Lothian, from Old English sae, meaning sea, and tun, meaning settlement, the settlement by the sea. The family appears in Scottish records from around 1150. What makes the Seton name remarkable is how consistently it appears at every crucial moment in Scottish royal history. Christopher Seton, husband of Robert the Bruce's sister, was captured and executed by the English in 1306. During the same desperate period when Bruce was on the run after killing the Red Comyn. Mary Seton was one of the 4 Marys, the 4 Scottish noblewomen named Mary who served as personal attendants to Mary Queen of Scots. George Seton, 5th Lord Seton, one of Mary's most loyal supporters, helped her escape from Loch Leven Castle in 1568, where she had been imprisoned after Carberry Hill. At Bannockburn, at the Wars of Independence, at the Marian Civil Wars, wherever Scottish history turned, a Seton was present. Not always in command, but always there. If your name is Seton, your family was present at every turning point in Scottish royal history. Number 3. Haig. The hedged enclosure in Scotland's most controversial field marshal, Haig derives from the Old English haig, a hedged enclosure or fenced area. The Haig family of Bemerside in the Scottish borders appears in Scottish records from around 1162. Thomas de Haga witnesses a charter from that period. Bemerside House, the Haig ancestral seat, comes with one of Scotland's most famous prophecies. Thomas the Rhymer, the 13th century Scottish seer, is said to have declared, "Tide what may, whate'er betide, Haig shall be Haig of Bemerside." Despite the family's male line coming close to extinction several times, a Haig has remained at Bemerside to this day. The prophecy is documented, though whether Thomas the Rhymer actually made it is another matter. The name Haig carries an inescapable historical weight through Field Marshal Sir Douglas Haig, 1st Earl Haig, who lived from 1861 to 1928 and was the British commander-in-chief during the First World War. He commanded the British forces at the Battle of the Somme in 1916, one of the bloodiest battles in human history, in which approximately 57,000 British soldiers were killed or wounded on the first day. He remains one of the most controversial figures in British military history, simultaneously lionized for eventual victory and condemned for the human cost of his methods, a border family with an 850-year prophecy, and the most debated general of the Great War. If your name is Haig, your family's prophecy has held, so far. Number 2. MacNeil, son of Niall, and the clan that claimed descent from the High Kings of Ireland. MacNeil from the Gaelic. MacNeil, meaning son of Niall, claims descent from the same Niall of the 9 hostages whose name gave us the O'Neill dynasty in Ireland. Whether this genealogical claim is fully documentable over 40 generations is debated, but the MacNeil chiefs have maintained it for centuries. The MacNeils of Barra are one of the most isolated and most distinctive clans in Scotland. Their seat, Stirling Castle, sits on a tiny island in Castle Bay Harbour on the Isle of Barra, the southernmost inhabited island of the Outer Hebrides. It is one of the most dramatically positioned castles in Scotland. The MacNeil tradition holds that after dinner, the MacNeil chief's herald would climb to the castle battlements and announce, "Hear, O ye people, and listen, O ye nations. The great MacNeil of Barra having finished his meal, the princes of the earth may now dine." Whether this was ever literally true or is a romantic tradition is unclear, but it captures the magnificent self-confidence of a clan that sat on a rock in the Atlantic and felt itself the equal of any king. The clan's motto is Boyd no boss, victory or death. If your name is MacNeil, your ancestors announced their dinners from a castle in the sea. Number 1. Macalpine, son of the Rock, the name of the king who made Scotland. We end with the name that, more than any other on this list, carries a claim to the deepest roots in Scottish history. Macalpine, from the Gaelic Mac Alpine, meaning son of Alpine, is derived from Alpin, father of Kenneth MacAlpine. Alpin, traditionally regarded as the first king of Scotland. The exact origin of Alpin is debated, with some scholars linking it to the ancient Pictish name Elpin or Alpin, but the historical significance is clear. Around 843 AD, Kenneth MacAlpine united the Pictish and Scottish kingdoms, creating the Kingdom of Alba, the direct predecessor of Scotland. How exactly this happened remains debated, but the dynasty he founded ruled Scotland for generations. The MacAlpine surname itself became hereditary much later, as fixed surnames only emerged in Scotland from the 12th century. Families bearing the name claim descent from Clan Alpin, the kindred of the original dynasty, a claim recognized by the court of Lord Lyon. To carry the name MacAlpine is to carry a claim reaching back to the very foundation of Scottish history. Not just to Bannockburn, not just to the Norman settlement, but to the moment when 2 Celtic kingdoms became one and Scotland began, the son of the rock, whose descendant made Scotland. If your name is MacAlpine, your family name reaches back to the birth of Scotland itself. 20 surnames, all ancient, all still here. Some of them preserve words from before the Gaelic language reached Scotland. Some carry Norman French from families that arrived 9 centuries ago and became more Scottish than the Scots. Some hold Pictish place names that no one alive speaks fluently anymore, and some reach back to the foundational act of Scotland's creation. The remarkable thing is not that these names are old. The remarkable thing is that they survived through the wars of independence, through the Reformation, through the Jacobite risings, through the clearances, through immigration to every English-speaking country on earth. The names survived, and through the names, the families survived, scattered across the world, but connected by a word that was first written down in a medieval charter in a language that is still spoken in the Scottish Highlands today. Your name is not just a name, it is a document, and today you learned what it says. Tell me in the comments, Which of these surnames is yours, and did anything today change how you understand what it carries? If this video was worth your time, a like genuinely helps the channel. Subscribe for more deep dives into the bloodlines that shaped history. See you in the next one.